envisage of managing this contract that's effective and efficient, that relates to service delivery to South African citizens. We did watch the Scopa session that was held between the last incumbent, and we've taken a lot of notes and a lot of concerns in terms of what was brought up in aid of presenting today. If you can just move to the next page. We thought we'd start about who AFRIRENT is and AFRIRENT Holdings as an organization. AFRIRENT was born 23 years ago in the fleet management industry, and we hold that 23 years of experience at AFRIRENT Holdings. We started from humble beginnings with 2 trucks and a dream, and it has led us to where we are today as an organization. From an AFRIRENT Holding perspective, our business is divided between 3 parts, primary focus parts. AFRIRENT Mobility, that houses the fleet management, and we'll dive into AFRIRENT Mobility in the next slide as we continue. AFRIRENT Enviro is a renewable energy business that's housed under AFRIRENT Holdings. It is a business that's lying dormant at the moment, and there is future plans from a strategy perspective as we grow into the energy sector. Indalo Hotels and Leisure, it's a hospitality business that resides within AFRIRENT Holdings, and that business focuses on the leisure side of the business, from hotels and the golf course business, restaurants, etc. If we move into AFRIRENT Mobility on the next slide. So under AFRIRENT Fleet Mobility, we house 4 businesses that reside in the fleet management space. One of them being the fleet management business, which is a leasing and managed maintenance business that houses all of our fleet management products. Moving on, we own a business called AFRITracker, where we manage and fit our own tracking devices with the use of telematics data that supports our fleet management requirements. In addition to that, we have a business called AFRIRENT Auto. This services the private sector where we have workshops, or we embedded ourselves into Coca-Cola's workshops that's responsible for managing their trailers, their trailer maintenance and repairs, enabling their service delivery. And lastly, on that slide, we have AFRIRENT Logistics, which is our transportation business that transports FMCG goods as well as other minerals within the South African borders. Moving on, Chairperson, our executive delegation, and we felt that it's important to understand who the team behind RT46 is. As I've introduced myself, my name is Junaid Ibrahim, the executive that's responsible for accountability of the operations environment and, of course, public commitment. My colleague sitting next to me, Shariana, our CFO, controls the cost aspect of this contract, managing the approvals, audit trails, procurement, and of course enforcing governance into this contract. My CIO introduced himself as Srinivasa. He's responsible for systems developments and ensuring that we are abreast in terms of change of technology and how we use technology to complement the needs of RT46. Our operations leads, Mr. Ramabebe Teboho. He's responsible for client onboarding, performance management of this contract, client reporting, works directly with the CIO in terms of ensuring that we deliver the necessary reports that is expected by government. Our contract lead, as we described herself, as Glenise Fortune. She's responsible for the RT46 program to deliver client services and of course the client interface between AFRIRENT and government departments. On the call, I'm not sure if they're on the call, if they've introduced themselves, our call center operations, Mr. Shahir Hamid, he's responsible for onboarding all of the vehicles on the system and ensuring that maintenance updates are kept to standards in terms of what the expectations are set out on this contract. Legal and compliance, Michelle Damata, responsible for legal agreements and the framework from a compliance and a dispute process, ensuring that we keep each other honest in terms of what we set out on this contract. If I can move on to the next page. Chairperson, we understand today's engagement, and as you've described it, it's a friendly environment. And like I've said, we have taken a lot of notes in terms of what was brought out in the last Scopa session. So we're here to present our 5-year plan, the action for RT46 implementation, how service delivery backlogs will be identified, prioritized, and addressed, set out measures to avoid the problems in the past and strengthen accountability in what we set out to do, respond to stakeholder implementation concerns, including merchant-related questions in the management of this contract. If we move on to the next page, our presentation roadmap set out for today is to describe the mandate in terms of why we are here, provide the context and in terms of our understanding, the concerns and AFRIRENT's understanding of the concerns and what role it's playing in service delivery. Our 5-year plan is a phased approach delivery aspect, the backlog of merchants, allocations and reporting, and lastly, merchant management approach. So in this presentation, we have received some of the questions from the associations and we incorporated throughout the presentation. We can just move on to the next page. So we'll describe our opening context from a public service and accountability. We want to emphasize on accountability and our role that we play in this contract. And of course, provide the purpose of the RT46 contract in terms of how we deliver. If we can go on, just a message from our leadership. Our leadership, we recognize that this engagement is a public accountability that comes with responsibility, just not to supply a routine briefing. Our commitment to service delivery is always upheld, and this contract is not transactional. It's become a service delivery contract where we enable government to execute on their deliverables to the public citizens of South Africa. So AFRIRENT appreciates the opportunity to brief Scopa and the readiness on implementation disciplines. We understand that this contract affects lives, safety, education, and dignity, just not only in the education and the various challenges that has been mentioned in this committee, but also extending this service and providing the same type of service with excellence down to administrative staff of national government. We are prepared to report in progress to be measured against clear commitments, and we openly accept the invitation to be at Scopa at the necessary time periods when called. We will engage from a reporting perspective so that we share transparency in how we report and where we are from a business perspective. If we move on to the next slide. So we've defined the purpose as the key themes that was mentioned in the last Scopa: emergency response, public safety, access to education, and lastly, not forgetting the rest of the other departments in this contract. So from emergency response perspective, ambulance and EMS vehicles support the different response and delay. We are here to set out in terms of how we plan to manage your EMS and your ambulance vehicles throughout the country. Public safety, SAPS, law enforcement, mobility supports visible police. To date, we have met with SAPS. We have regular engagements with Dr. Reddy, and we continue to tweak the changes that they require from a SAPS perspective in order to give them the unique type of service that they require. And of course, the same goes for EMS. We are set to meet with Dr. Reddy in East London on the 4th of June in order to understand the specific needs and unique needs that requires on the emergency side. Of course, access to education is something that we take to heart. Our kids of South Africa depends on transportation. Chairperson, you touched in your Scopa meeting the last time that it takes a kid 10 kilometers to walk just to gain access to a bus. You notice in our previous slide, we have a business called Busmark that we recently acquired. And that business is there to not only strengthen and support the needs of South African scholars, but to provide a solution to government that ensures mobility is kept for these individuals throughout South Africa. Citizens and dignity, of course, the rest of the departments cannot be ignored in these sessions. We're not saying that we're ignoring them. We have different processes for different types of services that's required in those different departments. Thank you. If you can move to the next slide. So our understanding of mandate, and one of the key takeaways that we've picked up in the last Scopa was show us how we will avoid the problems of the past and restore confidence in the RT46 environment. So our understanding of the mandate is of what Scopa expects, and Scopa expects a practical implementation plan, not a general statement of intent. And we're here to demonstrate such. The committee is obviously focused on service delivery and the backlog and the risk of repeat failures. We're here to show you this. We're here to demonstrate how we plan to change that landscape. AFRIRENT, we will distinguish the readiness work before commencement from full contract performance after go live. The core expectation is obviously accountable, visible, and measurable improvement, and we trust that we understand the mandate that is set out from this committee. If we move on to the next page, we'll start going into understanding of the current challenges, operational, financial, ethical, and ultimately about service delivery is what is expected out of RT46, specifically in category A and A1. So if we move to the next slide, some of the concerns that we've noted out of these sessions was critical vehicles off the road, the numbers of the vehicles that are off the road that were set out. It's alarming, it's shocking, and it's something that we feel and we take personally. The backlog and slow turnaround times in understanding why, where, how, why is it taking so long? If I'm not mistaken, I've heard that an ambulance went in and waited 9 months to come out, if not out already. That is unacceptable. We accept that it's unacceptable, and we propose change in terms of how we manage this. As I've touched on our earlier slide in our introduction, we are a fleet management company. We specialize in fleet management and managing of fleet assets, not only at government as well as in the private sector. Our focus is on fleet management, and it's not purely a transaction for us. It's about service delivery. Merchant governance weakness, we understand that there's challenges with merchants. We understand that there's corruption and collusion. And through this presentation, we'll touch on where, how, and how we plan to mitigate these challenges before it arises, before it becomes too late. We see it as a proactive approach rather than a reactive. Poor visibility and reporting in terms of why do we have to wait for Scopa to realize that we have more than 750 SAPS vehicles down without any reason. The visibility provides that comfort in terms of identifying these challenges and identifying the problem before it happens rather than waiting for it to happen. Cost and quality concerns, we are aware of inflated prices. We are aware of inflated invoices that's been sent on, that's been signed off, and we will show you in terms of how we manage this, and that's purely by importing and understanding what are the prices of parts, what is the labor rates, what are the flat rates that's required to service a vehicle, and not just simple a processing transaction. Accountability gaps, to identify the accountability. As a custodian of RT46 as of 1 July, we become responsible, we become accountable in terms of servicing the needs of South African citizens. AFRIRENT's plans is organized around these concerns and themes that has been recognized. Chairperson, if I may, prior our RT46 engagement, we've done a lot of homework in terms of understanding what are some of the challenges and how we can mitigate it. We've prepared our systems, we've prepared our employment plan, we've strategized around capacity and how we uplift capacity in order to fulfill this contract. If I describe the colleagues that are sitting around the table, we come from various industries. We come from fleet management industries. We have banking experience. We basically cherry-picked the organization in terms of who we want on our side in order to manage our clients' expectations. Banking experience, more than 15 years of banking experience, resides in AFRIRENT. We are aware of some of their challenges. We are aware of the shortfalls. We are aware of the gaps in the systems that they have. Our fleet management system has always existed in our business. And what we've done is we enhance. Our speed to market in terms of enhancing our fleet management systems becomes quite agile. Why? Because we procure locally, our development is done locally, and we do not have to wait 5 years for any implementation periods to happen. We do it on the cuff. If we move on to the next slide. The public service, just some of the concerns around public service impacts and the concerns. Ambulances unavailable, delayed emergency care. When I say we take this to heart, we sincerely mean it, that we take service delivery to heart. Chairperson, it was described in this forum as well that many of us around this room have medical aids and we have affordability to phone a private ambulance. When I say this is personal, a personal experience is where specifically in this province where we needed an ambulance, we were told that we might be there at 5 o'clock. We sit around this table, we're fortunate enough to make a call and get a private ambulance for care. What about the rest of the population that lives under the poverty line? We take the matter to heart and we intend on changing that landscape and how things are perceived from an ambulance perspective. The critical priority routing and escalations will be treated at the highest level when it comes to ambulance. Police vehicles delayed, reduced law enforcement mobility is the impact, whilst AFRIRENT's focus is on high priority case management. Scholar transportation disrupted, learners access, the service impact relates to learner access, attendance that is affected, and dropping out of school. The service continuity tracking is set in place to understand how long our vehicles have been standing, and what are the root cause challenges to get these vehicles and get them out onto the roads. Poor reporting, weak oversight that leads to weak oversight and late intervention, as we described. Dashboard, our solution is around dashboard and exception reporting live as we go along and as we proceed with this contract. Cost anomalies, budget pressure and trust erosion. AFRIRENT provides control, audit trails and variance reviews so that it's trackable and manageable. If we move on to the next slide, we will talk about AFRIRENT's response. We're not here to defend the past. AFRIRENT is here to demonstrate readiness, control, and accountability for the future. We acknowledge the seriousness of the concerns that's raised in the RT46 environment, and that has occurred over the few years. We will not treat critical service vehicles the same as ordinary administrative vehicle, and we say that with respect because of the severity of why these vehicles need to be on the road. We'll manage the implementation through documented process, clear ownership, and measurable performances. We'll support the oversight through transparent reporting and evidence-based discussions, and that is our commitment to this committee. If we move on to the next, we will discuss our implementation phase, our implementation principles. Citizens first. Behind all of these vehicles, there is a citizen that requires service delivery, and without vehicles or service deliveries, objectives cannot be met. The service is there to impact vehicle matters, and that's our primary focus. Critically based, essential services receive priority treatment. We'll touch on later in the presentation in terms of how we prioritize these departments. Fair and transparent allocations and decisions must be auditable, and it's set out in our contractual requirement around auto allocation. It is not an AFRIRENT requirement, it is not a Scopa requirement, it is a contractual requirement in which we commit to deliver on. Data-led, we strongly believe in data-led decisions and data-driven decisions. Without visibility of data and without understanding the data packs, the blind will be leading the blind. And our response is quite simple around data, is we want to provide the best data solutions to government. A control environment processes must have owners and timeframes and escalations. What we've done well in our business thus far is that we've segregated responsibilities throughout our business. So there is no key person that makes individual decisions, rather a collective decision that not only takes care of AFRIRENT's governance process, but also our commitment to government and what the contract sets out. And lastly, measurable, our reports, our actions, our service delivery has to be measurable, and we intend to do it. The principle becomes controls, and controls becomes our performance in what we set out to do. We can move on to the next slide, thank you. So we've looked at what would be different under AFRIRENT from a risk perspective down to a control perspective. We touched on a transaction-led administration, and our commitment is not to be transactional, rather to focus on service delivery and getting vehicles down. Currently, it's reactive handling of delays, limited visibility of exceptions, unclear ownership of service outcome, weak evidence based for oversight, reactive handling of delays, limited visibility of exceptions, uneven merchant performance discipline, unclear escalation of ownership, and weak evidence based for oversight. What we plan to change is operational fleet management, and we bring in fleet management into this contract because this is what the contract's about. Proactive case management, dashboard and exception reporting, names of owners of service for service outcomes. We want to attach accountability in every aspect of what and where we are in the process and who does what, so it becomes auditable. Audit-ready reporting and records. At a click of a button, you get your audit reports, your audit trails in terms of where where the challenges or where the bottlenecks are. Proactive case management, dashboard exception reporting. My apologies for the repeat. Structured merchant governance and how we set out to manage the merchants in terms of accountability and quality. And of course, audit-ready reporting records. If we move on to the next slide, we'll discuss our readiness and the 5-year plan and how AFRIRENT will transition, stabilize, improve the contract over time. If we move on, sir. All right. The current transition and readiness status in terms of where we are from a data handover perspective. Mr. Mbanda last mentioned that we had 50%. I must say that that number has increased to around 80%. We've received the necessary data of what we need to ingest into our systems from a continuity perspective. We are aware of the data of what we received and what we expected. What we don't know is what else that needs to be provided. There's a clear lead-out plan from our RT46 contractual requirement. It's a 180-day lead-out process. That process includes the data transfer, and all data belonging to the state needs to be handed over. At this point, Chairperson, we want to focus on the ingestion of the data and understanding where we are from a maintenance perspective, where are we tracking from a cost environment, and how do we start ingesting the data so we start tracking trends. The merchant network has begun. We're sitting in 54% upload, 54% onboarding in the process. We have sent out, and we'll describe our merchant onboarding process in detail in the next few slides of where we are. And we are chasing up with our procurement teams to try and get the links to be open so that merchants can upload their documents and provide the necessary statutory documents as required. A system setup, merchant, client onboarding, core system, case flow management, and reporting dashboards. We are happy to commit that we are progressed from a core system perspective. The system has always been in there. What we are trying to do right now is to tie up all of these systems into the dashboard reporting so that every system talks to one platform. If I may add, in addition to that, our responsibility is to respond on the other categories, B, C, D, and E. And of course, those engagements are on the way in terms of getting those data points and APIs resolved. From a governance perspective, forum, owners, cadence, and escalation parts will be created by mid-June, and that'll be communicated to all user departments, including this committee. And lastly, from a controls perspective, approvals, billings, checks, and trial designs will be concluded in the month of June, readiness for 1 July. So if we're moving on to the next slide, we'll talk about RT46 governance and accountability structure and how it's set out. An executive overstructure. Because we're a fleet management business, our structures are light. When we say light, we talk about more accountability and more involvement from an executive perspective. So the executive oversight is there from our chairperson, our CEO, and of course the senior leadership that's presented here in this forum today. Moving on into the RT46 Program Management Office, our operations teams that deals with escalations, that deals with system reporting and contract management is set out separately. Our merchant management is segregated out of the operations area to ensure that we have fairness and apply the right governance structures to that. Systems and data is housed in an IT and a development house, where they become our enablers in terms of what we need to provide in executing this contract from a reporting perspective. Of course, finance and controls becomes very important in how we approve and how we authorize. We become the custodians to ensure that we are the first gatekeeper of measuring correct invoices that come through. And of course, most importantly, legal and compliances is there to assist us in where we are. Every issue must have its own owner, a time frame and escalation path that will pave this journey for success in managing this contract. So moving on to the next slide, we talk about a phased delivery horizon and what does the horizon look like. Chairperson, we're currently in our implementation phase as it stands, as you've rightfully mentioned. We start on the 1st of July as a go live. Where we are right now is data transfer and field mapping, ensuring that we map these fields correctly and it's ingested into our system, so reporting on the 1st of July becomes easy. The governance structures and dispute management processes are being designed and being documented. Our merchant onboarding is in progress. And of course, the system enhancements in terms of what we require to bring this together to be ready by 1 July. Chairperson, our internal target date is 1 June, where we will spend the entire month of testing and trying to break the system, to identify gaps in the system so that when we come on 1 July, we're not faced with teething problems. Day one controls, when the clock strikes midnight on the 1st of July, I know I will be there in our office, in our call center, waiting for the first phone call to come through so that we answer and we are ready and we show that we are ready. So the operational control towers needs to be ready, go live 1 July. Continuous monitoring and stabilization to ensure that there is stability in what we set out to do and what we've promised. Reporting and exception alerts becomes immediate, and continuous client communication through this process with our various stakeholders that we engage in with. The first 90 days will be, and we don't see it to go smooth, and I think we must be honest with each other. There's a lot of backlogs that's been faced. Chairperson, if I may add, on the 1st of June, all major components will not be authorized by the existing incumbent, obviously from a lead-out perspective, and that raises concerns in terms of the backlog of the backlogs getting into a worse off position. So the first 90 days includes stabilizing the backlog, critical cases and merchants and routines, understanding where they are. I think it's important for me to state that the data that we received is closed authorizations and it's not open authorizations. So at this stage, we do not have visibility of what vehicles are in repair, obviously because of the lead-out process. After the last Scopa, we have saw that as a gap and we have raised it internally as a risk. And we've requested for that data to be shared with us so that we could eventually take over the process. Whilst we may not be responsible for the authorization and the closure of those authorizations, we want to be part of the process in terms of tracking it and providing our services, even though that we will not be responsible for that lead-out process. It's part of a takeover, and we realize that we need to be involved on the ground from day one. Report back to key stakeholders will be continuous, weekly reports, daily reports that shows on the ground where we are from a calls perspective, just so that we can manage the 90 days to show confidence in what we set out to do. Of course, moving into year one, the KPIs will be consolidated during that year. Reporting and performance forums will be created and will be attended, and agendas will be set out. Identification of HDI development and candidates in terms of what our obligation is expected to deliver out of this contract. And then, of course, by year 2 and 5, it's to optimize, mature, and continuously improve in terms of processes and developments. If we move on to the next slide, in the next few slides we'll talk about the strategic pillars, the service continuity that relates to service continuity. Strategic pillar 1 is identified as restore and protect service continuity, prioritize all critical service vehicles in terms of how they manage and the turnaround times and the special turnaround times that we expect to be that we provide to those individual departments. Identify and manage the backlog through visible aging framework. This is the data that we speak about in terms of authorizations and outstanding or open authorizations. It becomes critical for us to understand when they were authorized, where they are sitting in the approval, and where they manage from a repair perspective, so that our teams can get on the ground and start managing and start chasing. Of course, we have relationships with the OEMs and all of the biggest OEMs in South Africa, and we would tend to use we will tend to leverage our relationships with them in terms of assistance. But without understanding what they are, we're not going to know, and that's why we put an emphasis. We emphasize the fact that we need the data. Report progress against availability and turnaround indicators. That becomes a standard. Turnaround time becomes vital, and what we want to state that it's made very clear from an SLA perspective what are those turnaround times. The outcome of that is to reduce disruption to emergency policing, scholar transportation, and essential services. Basically, what we're saying is we want to reduce the disruptions in service delivery across South African government vehicles. If we move on to pillar 2, is build a disciplined merchant network, a documented onboarding and activation process. And Chairperson, I think, and to the rest of the colleagues, I think as we go on through this presentation on the onboarding, we trust that comfort will be found around the merchant onboarding process. A structured inspection and minimum standards, performance monitoring, corrective action and consequence management, fair network participation, supported by data and evidence. If I may say, these processes are done in consultation. It's done in consultation with the users and to try and understand what are their pain points. It's done in consultation with the various merchant associations to understand what their pain points are and how do we find middle ground. If you move on to pillar 3, it's improve visibility, reporting, and data, and decision making. Operational dashboard for statuses and exceptions. Each user department, each transport officer, each individual or each stakeholder in this contract has accessibility to their own dashboards. It is designed and created in terms of the unique environment of what is required for each user department. We don't paint everybody with the same paintbrush in this aspect. Downtime means more to one department as opposed to break turnaround time or parts availability, etc. There are various aspects of reporting, and we want to engage and we want to finalize those reportings so that we give that unique service to each user. Management reports with trends, understanding why are these vehicles going down, what are the problems, and we've heard that age has been an issue, we've heard that mileage has been an issue. Is there any truth into that matter? These data decisions drive these decisions in terms of us analyzing the maintenance, understanding the root cause of these problems, whether it's parts availability or whether it's lack of approvals, or whether it's just pure negligence in terms of repairing these vehicles. Reporting calendars aligned to governance forums. We have noted the invitation months that we will be presented at this forum. We welcome it. We want to be here, and we want to be held accountable for what we set out to do. Evidence-based discussions with departments and oversight structures. The data is not going to lie. We will talk about where we're stuck in authorizations. We'll talk about how long merchants are taking. We'll talk about how long our call center takes to answer a call. And all of these stats will be made available live so that when we sit here, there is no gathering report or evidence data. The data is there for you. The fourth pillar is around fair allocation, HDI, advancement, and merchant development. Auditable work allocation logic, in terms of how we set up from a work allocation perspective. Again, it's a treasury requirement for us to auto-allocate. It is not an AFRIRENT decision, and we set out to deliver what is expected out of the SLA that is governed at the Treasury and a National Department of Transport level. HDI participation tracked throughout with clear metrics in terms of understanding how much spend, how much work allocation in terms of capacity versus allocation to be shared. Merchant development approach with transparent selection and process measurable. We set out during the first year to understand, to receive the data and plan around the HDI merchant development. There is an expectation for us to develop 30 merchants around the country by not only assisting them, by getting them registered on various boards or recognized boards, and we intend on doing that. A balanced development objectives with service continuity and quality. I must say, through our partners, what we set out to do is that we want to provide merchants with access to favorable parts pricing that has a benefit to national government. We want to provide the merchants with insurance options to make sure that all the assets are covered under insurance when it's under their protection. We want to engage with banking facilities for them to enable these merchants across the country, that we provide them access to funding. Further on to that is we are still behind in terms of accessing a consultancy service to assist merchants across the country in developing their own business. There's one thing that we talk about transformation and is providing work to merchants, but not following through on the development process and providing them with enablers to move them on to the next level is not regarded as transformation. So to wrap up that, our outcome is fairer participation without compromising critical service to delivery. If we move on, we're going to touch on the backlog and service recovery, the service recovery plan. As I've mentioned, there is a 180-day lead-out process that WesBank will continue to deliver on. We want to be involved in the process so that we can at least start reporting on it. Unfortunately, we do not have any power over those authorizations. We do not have any access to their technical advisors. We have our own, and we would only be able to report where we can escalate to OEMs and where we can escalate with merchants. We will do our very best in terms of prioritizing that and getting them out as soon as possible. Of course, we don't, like I said, it's the data that matters and what we see and what we don't. The priority treatment for critical services in the next described clusters. We understand that there is a priority level and where it needs to be served. So we've clustered them into 4 clusters, clusters 1 to 4. Cluster 1 being EMS and ambulances. The fastest allocation and closest suitable capacity is what we've done is we've created the capacity for an independent call center line that's purely accessible for EMS and ambulances. This call center will be ring-fenced to deal with EMS cases and ambulance cases to give it the highest level of attention that it deserves. Of course, moving on, SAPS law enforcement, again, an independent line, an independent call line that is ring-fenced for its downtime and management of that. Cluster 3 is VIP and specialized vehicles, and the specialized vehicles includes your yellow metal, it includes your buses, so that we give it a different level of treatment. And then, of course, I always said to my colleagues is we can talk about priority. Every single vehicle in this contract is a priority to us. Lastly, our other essential services and the service impact triage and reporting, again, separate lines for them. These lines will be printed onto vehicle desk stickers that will be affixed to all vehicles and ensuring continuous communication so that we know the numbers of who to call. If we move on to merchant governance, onto the next slide, concerns show how the merchant network will be managed and fairly firmly. So moving on to the next slide, sir. All right. I think the committee might find comfort in how we set out to onboard our customers. We've discussed earlier that we have a segregated approach in what we do and how we do it, and to set the record straight that no operations individual will be responsible for merchant onboarding. And the pure reason is for us to combat collusion and corruption of what's going on in this contract. So if you look at our process, number 1 is to identify the merchants in terms of what they require. And sorry, one of the questions were asked in terms of how often do we onboard customers. Obviously, we are in our implementation phases, and we're making our way through all of the active merchants as well as the non-active merchants to identify what were the reasons. So number 1, identify the merchants and the needs. And through this process is we have to understand where the vehicles are and how much of merchants are available to service that need. When we talk about merchants, what merchants are we talking about? We refer to vehicle services, we refer to breakdown services, we refer to maintenance services, we refer to towing service, panel beating services, and other unique requirements, for example, specialized equipment that needs to repair cranes or cooling devices where they are, specifically around those needs. Those processes are mapped and it's understood from a wallboard perspective in terms of where those shortcomings are for us to close those gaps. The next step is screening. The screening and compliance and capability. It's a desktop analysis. At this stage is for us to use an external system, a legal framework system that verifies CSD, that verifies BEE, and verifies any criminal records that's associated with this ownership in order before we move on to the next process. The next process is to inspect, is to go out, still on the same page, sir. I'm in tile number 3. Still there now? Sorry. Inspect, so identify the site where vehicles will be housed and where vehicles will be maintained. It needs to be in acceptable condition. The general concerns that we've heard and that's been floating around was vehicles are being repaired under trees. As a state vehicle, vehicles should be treated at the very highest level of priority and service quality that's there to be delivered. Identify the tools that's in these workshops for the various different types of services. We understand there's a grading system in your workshops where it handles minor services up to major services. And of course, those requirements and those tool expectations are different from one another. The process of grading the workshops and understanding the grading of the workshop also results in a work allocation and how we allocate work to the various merchants across the country. For the basic example, if a vehicle needs to go in for a minor service, we would tend to want allocated to a minor service repair center. Of course, that's governed by the mandates in terms of what is set out from a contractual perspective. The decision is then sent back to our legal and procurement team in conjunction with our technical reports, and that process is done based on what are the expectations are from the inspections. If the inspection fails, we will not proceed to the next level. Then lastly, to move into number 5 and number 6 is contract. Sign our agreements, and our agreements are mirrored in terms of what our expectations are. The same level of what we are treated and what our expectations are must be delivered downwards from a management perspective. And lastly, activate the merchants on the systems from a merchant code perspective so that they can transact. The merchant inspection framework, what we set out to do is covered in 3. It's the inspection type, when it happens, and what the purpose of is. So onboarding inspections, and these inspections has to be done prior onboarding or activation of the merchants. Is we need to do this proactively rather than reactively to mitigate some of the challenges of where vehicles are being sent out and there's no repair center. What is the purpose of that? Is to confirm capability and minimum standards. Annual inspections, we understand that we were supposed to provide a calendar. I want to say to this forum is that we will not be able to provide a calendar. Our expectations are to inspect these workshops annually. And the reason why we can't provide a calendar is to randomize it, is to ensure that when we inspect, the workshops are open, the tools are still there, the staff is still there, and there's vehicles at work. Why we don't need to provide a calendar, because in a workshop environment, the expectation of workshops is to be open at least 5 days a week for business as operating hours. So maintains compliance and updates that records. The triggered inspections around the merchant framework is obviously complaints, quality issues, abnormal cost or any delays coming out of that merchant. The purpose of that is to investigate and decide corrective actions against such merchants. Remedial inspection, after failed conditional outcomes, confirm improvement before full participation. If we move on to the next, we talk about our merchant agreements and minimum standards. And we say this, it's our agreements and it's minimum. We are very different to the bank, and our framework is set out differently. Our legal and regularity documentation. We start with our compliance documents, which is our CSD documents, which is a requirement, again, from a National Treasury perspective. It's not an AFRIRENT requirement. However, it does help us in terms of identifying the various ownership aspects and any government employees if any merchants are owned by a government employee. Registration, tax where applicable, tax documents, VAT documents where applicable, BEE, licenses, and required compliance documents. Chairperson, this process goes through, like we said, we go through a legal process. We do something that's called a world check, that checks on any criminality, that checks on any opening pending cases against such merchant or such service provider that's going to be adopted into RT46. Because merchants become our responsibility and the risk becomes our responsibility, we have to ensure that these necessary checks are done and are in place. Operational capability, the facilities, the tools, the capacity becomes important. What we don't want to find is 30 vehicles sitting at a merchant where capacity can only do 2 vehicles at a time. We'll discuss more around that when we get to allocations. Parts access, specialty availability, quality and workmanship, repair standards, warranty handling, quality assurance, and repeat failure control in terms of repairs. We have the approach of get it right done the first time. Commercial conduct, pricing disciplines, documentation, invoice controls, and conflict management. Our cost control and disciplines is quite clear, is we benchmark the pricing against the industry pricing. How do we do that? It's through our OEMs. We ingest all of the parts pricing, and through our aftermarket service providers, we ingest their parts pricing to ensure that we don't find the need of inflating prices by 400%. Performance management, KPIs, review frequency, remediation, suspension, and removal triggers. Minimum standards protect the contract, the department, merchants, and the public. If we move on to the next slide, we would discuss automatic work allocation. And I must say I was very pleased that we found this in the terms of reference as an expectation. So our work allocation model is designed around capability. Do you have the capability to do a particular service? And we classify that by incident. The compliance is your documents in time and the regular checks of compliance documents and CSD documents to ensure that you are still viable to contract in this contract. Location of where you are located. We've heard the concerns about vehicles traveling in excess of 100 kilometers for minor service. We find that to be unfair. We find that to be wasteful expenditure from a fuel cost, from a downtime perspective, from a travel perspective, and location becomes important of where we service vehicles. Capacity is understanding how merchants have the capacity to deal with the work. And how it's done that is through these inspections, we understand what is the capacity of each merchant so that when we onboard them onto the system, our capacity is loaded. So then when we auto-allocate, we understand what is the open job cards that is sitting at a specific merchant, how many jobs have been done, and where are they in the cycle of fairness of distribution. And of course, the urgency of these requirements are built into the auto-allocation. Specializations, we want to send a boat for repairs to a boat company, not a truck company. And we've got to be clear on that in terms of speciality and where work needs to be provided. We need expertise, and merchants needs to have the right expertise in terms of this in order for us to get it right. Lastly, from a performance perspective, is understand where they are from a performance. If a merchant's not performing, there's consequences to that. Similarly to this contract, if AFRIRENT is not performing, there are consequences to deal with those aspects. And of course, we design our auto allocation to surround itself around that. Development objectives, we touched on this during the first years. We need to understand where we are with the merchants and we start activating our plans. So what does this provide? A system-driven work allocation engine that's based on the above parameters that we've discussed, minimizing unfair decision and making minimizing unfair decision-making, collusion, and corruption. Allocation must support the service delivery and development of objectives. Chairperson, if I can give this room comfort around work allocation, is that No call center agent will provide allocations to a merchant. The days of calling a call center agent is behind us, and the auto allocation proves to make those decisions. So what do we expect from our call center agents is to conduct desktop analysis before activating a technical advisor out for an inspection. When we talk about call center agents that sits behind the desk, they are qualified artisans that understands the vehicle and understands the flat rates. I'll give you an example. A service on a vehicle at a particular service may allow for 1.5 hours. These guys are equipped in terms of understanding what are those flat rates. They understand with the use of the system, understand when there's deviations of parts inflation prices, understanding consumable prices. That's their functionality. They are not business developments where they will provide work to merchants. And that's what the auto allocation is there to do, is to provide and take away that responsibility. And at the same time, protect those individuals from engaging in these corrupt activities that's currently going on today. The decisions should be traceable and based on documented factors rather than discretion alone. Execution must be recorded with reason and reviewed through the governance process. If we move on to HDI, advancement and merchant development, the HDI participation is track participation in work allocation, merchant development and reporting, development pathway, identify the capability gaps, support standards in upliftment and monitor. We can only do that during our first year. Transparency, report on allocation trends, development process, and exceptions through the governance. What you will see in reporting on the trends, again, relates back to our SLA. We are expected to rotate work. We expected to auto-allocate based on a 90-day period. We cannot favor one merchant over the other. And that, of course, is taken care by the auto-allocation. Service delivery balance, departmental objective, must not compromise emergency and critical service readiness. Moving on to reports and controls and accountability, contract visibility, measurable and oversight readiness. The performance management monitoring reporting structure is operational. At the operational level is daily, weekly case tracking, exception and critical vehicles to be reported at the highest level. Management trends, monthly trends under the management report is to provide feedback to government in terms of how old your vehicles are by using an optimal replacement point to understand that this vehicle will not continue further from a maintenance perspective, and it's best that we change those vehicles. We will provide those reports, we will provide those advice based on market conditions, based on market values in terms of how much government is actually spending on maintenance as opposed to acquiring new vehicles. We understand these budget constraints, but again, it's how do we work together in understanding those things so that we provide the right advice. KPIs, backlogs, reporting on it, merchant performance and risk. And contract governance is a quarterly performance compliance and allocation to development review. Oversight readiness, evidence based on reporting for oversight engagements and when required. Stakeholder management is very important. The structured engagement route for issues where appropriate and how do we deal with it timelessly. Just move on to the next page where we discuss KPIs. We've documented it in two forms, primary and secondary. Again, no report is unimportant to us. However, we want to classify it as primary. And what is the primary objective? The primary objective is around vehicle availability, turnaround times at a merchant level, and also at a transport officer level. So when we talk about an authorization, is we receive a quote, we quote, created a clearance document, and a clearance document sits with the transport officers. It goes through approval stage. Authorization is then passed on to the merchant, and inspection is done after that before signing off the job card with obviously either QR code or a one-time PIN. Now, it's very important to talk about turnaround times, and we spoke about data. And data becomes so important of how we manage it. So we want to see where the bottlenecks are from an approval perspective. And like we said, This contract is about accountability, and our reporting provides that transparency and accountability. Cost mark benchmarking, again, is around inflated price and how we deal with inflated prices. Critical service responses, the expectation of the call centers to answer their calls as quick as possible, of course, from an SLA perspective as well. Backlog aging, understanding where the backlogs are and reporting based on it. Quarterly repeat failures to be identified and how that will be managed. And of course, reporting timelines. The secondary KPIs represents our merchant development progress, the allocation fairness, the HDI participation, inspection completion, inspection closure, and stakeholder resolutions if there's any concerns around such. If we move on to the next, we touch on systems, the data operational visibility. Vehicle data, very important for us to understand the make, model, odometer department. It is the critical requirement of onboarding a vehicle. And we take it down to a simple reason of understanding model code. We understand that there is phase outs in different vehicles, in different categories. We need to ensure that we deploy the right expertise when we're dealing with that call when it comes through. The case data, open status, aging, delivery owner, delay reasons, and of course, escalating to next actions. Merchant data, capability, compliance, location, capacity, performance, the financial data, the quotes, the number of quotes, approvals, invoices, variance, and it becomes important for us to understand the variance in terms of what we used to pay for versus what we're going to pay for going forward when we speak about government. And of course, exception checks where there are exceptions. Reporting data, dashboard, trend views, KPI, and oversight. Data quality is not administration. It's how the contract becomes controllable, is understanding and having sight of it. If we move on to the next slide, top contracts, the top contract risk, what we've identified and how they'll be controlled. Number one, delayed turnaround times, aging triggers, escalation onus, critical routing. So when we talk about escalation, when there's a quote or when there's a clearance document that is presented to a transport officer, the expectation for them is to either query it or either accept it. Within a specific time period, if that clearance document is not signed, there's an escalation path to the next senior and to the next senior up until we close it. Of course, the reporting aspect will detail that in terms of how many escalations, how long it took to resolve those escalations before we got an approval. The same thing happens during the repair process. We have SLA agreed turnaround times in terms of how long a service needs to take, how long a major service, how long accidents should take. And of course, those escalations follow the same path in terms of where to do it. How do we do it? Systematically. We can only do this systematically by trusting an individual that sits behind the call center. They're having a bad day or whatever the case may be. We cannot rely on those individuals. Like we said, our call center agents are there to approve, to scrutinize invoices, to understand what are the maintenance concerns before authorizing, before creating that clearance document. Systems needs to flag, system needs to escalate, system drives these decisions. Of course, open case and agent reports. Merchant underperformance, scorecards, the control approach will be scorecards, inspections, corrective actions, and supervision. The evidence report supporting that is merchant performance back in terms of where their performances are, how long they've taken to work, or how long they've taken to complete a task. Cost anomalies, quote, invoice, variance checks, and exception reviews. Like we've mentioned, we've ingested all of the OEM pricing and in the process of ingesting the aftermarket pricing of where they are. So we are not challenged with inflated prices on parts. The evidence pack is obviously around repeat failure, and of course we want to highlight the good where we can. Communication, a governance calendar around stakeholders, issue logs, these things needs to be logged, and of course we have an action tracker that's to track these communication aspects or any of the challenges that we are faced with. Backlog growth, backlog triage is becomes very important, where we start tracking these trends and managing the intervention before the storm arrives. Again, data becomes crucial in terms of managing that, understanding the trends of why brake failure is happening in a certain environment. Do we have the right vehicles for the right application to support the needs? And of course, backlog dashboards will be created. Fraud. An independent forensic investigation team. We will be outsourcing our forensic investigations to an independent partner that has complete independency on it and no influence from a contract and from any accused perspective. And of course, the evidence supporting that will be a forensic report that will be handed over either to the committee or various other committees that require them. Moving on, in terms of what success looks for us over the next 5 years, critical availability, more critical availables that becomes available for service in order to fulfill the needs of South Africans' needs. The backlog, lower age backlogs with clear ownership and causes of why they are being backlogged. The turnaround time, improved repair cycle, visibility and intervention when it happens, not after it happens. Merchant our responsibility, capable, compliant, and fairly managed network reporting, reliable dashboard reportings, and oversight ready. And of course, most importantly, the stronger confidence from departments and merchants around oversight structures and how we manage this contract. Chairperson, that leads me to my closing slide, is that we understand the seriousness of this mandate. We take the responsibility personally. AFRIRENT is prepared to be measured on the discipline around the implementation, the transparent reporting, and service delivery impact of the people of South Africa. We are not approaching RT46. We're approaching RT46 as a fleet management service provider and not a transaction processing center. RT46 is a vehicle to support public service, and we are fully committed behind this endeavor. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, colleagues.
Right, thank you very much for that very thorough presentation. Right, at this point, I'd like to ask Education if they have any input that they'd like to give now, and thereafter I will go to questions from members. So, HOD, Education, is there any input you'd like to give from what you've heard?
Yeah, yes, Chair, but it's short now, just short now, because I heard that AFRIRENT were listening to our presentations and the challenges we're facing in the last Scopa session. I will therefore only not repeat that because they listened to us, and I'm happy to hear that they did. I will only emphasize the fact that with us in the Department of Education, we use their service in the main for our own fleet, the fleet of the department, but also for the fleet of learners in special schools in particular. And I would urge that they treat that fleet in the same way as they have indicated that they will categorize, fleets in terms of who they service, and therefore they should treat that fleet in the same way they would treat an ambulance, for instance, that has been taken to, for repairs, or a police van that has been taken for repairs, because those could have very serious implications if they take too long. Not to say that our ordinary fleet, day-to-day fleet, is not important, but I do want to emphasize the fleet for special schools, that it should receive special attention. Thank you.
HOD, we recently did visits to special schools, I know myself and Honorable Mantlopa, and they are places of great inspiration. and really shows what can be done in a caring and competent environment. The last thing you want is that the children can't get to school. So yeah, you're 100% right. It's a very. I have a hand from. Okay, I have a hand from Pindi Nene. Pindi, which department are you with?
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members. Let me start by apologizing. My name is Zanele Nene. I'm logging in using my sister's gadget. I'm having a problem with the connectivity. I'm from the Department of Education, Transport Manager.
Okay, that's fine. Your HOD has already spoken. Is there anything more you'd like to add?
Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to add on what HOD has said. Perhaps let me start by appreciating the report. The service provider has done their homework. I have two items that I want to seek clarity. What plans does the service provider have to capacitate the merchants on the RT46 contracts? That is the first one. The second one, I wanted the service provider to refer us back to cluster number 31, where there is 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters. I wanted to check our concerns mainly as a department, as HOD has indicated, is the status of buses and the repairs. From the 4 clusters that are indicated
sorry, Nene, can I just interrupt you? Sorry. You know the custom in the house is members ask the questions. So I suggest that you message your delegation that's here, those questions. The members of AFRIRENT are here, and I think this is an ideal opportunity to swap contact details and start the conversation from there. Okay. I don't want to fall foul of my other members in my committee who will say that no, this is a place for members to ask questions, not anyone else. Okay. I'm going to take one last swing at this. Is health still not online? Nobody from health? Okay. And nobody from community safety and liaison? All right, that's okay. All right, okay, let's go to the members now. I'll start with the members in the House. Are there any questions from the members in the House? Honourable Magabane, thank you for joining us. It's good to have you here in person. Honourable Matlopa? Okay, everyone, all right. So let's go Honourable Mkiz, Honourable Magabane. Is Honourable Ngadi still with us? No. Okay. All right, that's fine. Okay, Honourable Matlopa, please. Go for it. And then I'll come to members on the platform. If you could just raise your hands and we'll note them. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. We welcome the presentation by AFRIRENT, and I'm also excited that they understand our concerns as the Scopa, and also they understand what we raised in the meeting with the previous service provider. But what I want to check, I saw that also on the presentation there is a turnaround time. And in the presentation there is a promise by COO that they will really make sure that they don't do shoddy work. They will really have the quality and workmanship. What I want to check, because they have been in the field for a long time and they have got different expertise as they have presented before us, what is the estimation of the turnaround time to service the vehicle if they come? I know that it will depend on the challenges that the car is having, but just to estimate, to say that the worst scenario in the car, because you raise an important thing to say you had like 9 months, which is really something unacceptable. But to you as AFRIRENT, what will be the estimated turnaround time for the vehicles? I'm saying this because the chair has indicated that we visit one of the school for kids with disabilities. And we find that the principal was telling us that for 3 months, the kids were not coming to school because of the bus that is still not returned back to pick up the child. Maybe if they can share with us the turnaround time. Secondly, Chair, because maybe I won't going to come back because they are doing presentation, their plan, they are indicating their 5-year plan of action to say this is what we're gonna do, this is what we have learned. Also, I will propose, Honorable Chair, that because they said 90 days, they won't they will be not having a quick, response to the challenges that are there. But maybe after 90 days, if we can meet again on the issue of the challenges of the workload that they are inheriting, so that they brief us, so that we know. Maybe, Chair, when we start, we want to see maybe quarterly, maybe later on when we see that things are working well, like 6 months, they come back and tell us. Because we don't want really this repeat of the previous contracts that was giving us challenges. And also COO was emphasizing on the issue of service delivery, which is our concern. I think they will appreciate what we are saying, to say that they must really update us so that really we don't have the challenges. Chair, because I know that they were looking at how service delivery backlogs will be identified, prioritized, and addressed. So I know that when after this 3 months, which is 90 days, they will be in a position to tell us this is what we identified, this is what we prioritize, and this is what is being actioned, so that as a committee we follow, because we don't want to lose a site like the previous contracts, because we find them on the way. But we are starting with you. We will follow, we'll make you accountable about the action plan that you have presented before us. We wish you good luck to do this work honestly, and also not prioritizing private sector over the public sector work that we are being given, So we will follow you, we will always, because you indicated that we will be phoning, you talk about the weekly and daily report to the stakeholders, so that you see whether you are still on track. So we will follow that. All the best. And I'm glad that this delegation, it's well represented. We have got also women, and congratulations for being leading this particular AFRIRENT. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Motlopa. Just for the interest of time, I'm going to let the members in the chamber ask their questions. Then we'll get answer to the questions from the 3 members in the chamber, and then we'll go to the online platform. Okay. We normally have a back and forth in hearings, which we will do when we see you next time. But this time we're just gathering information. Honourable Mkiz.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm really partly covered without a waste of time. But also, thanks for the presentation. It looks promising. It looked promising. Let's hope there will be no disappointments. Chairperson, I would have expected more of the departments, because they are in the line more than any one of us. When they don't deliver to the schools, every time they've got to apologize for not taking kids in and out, whatever they need to do, they are failing the youth of this province. It's not indirect, it's you, but the front line is it is the departments. So let's really hope you're not going to disappoint us in this province. Lastly, Chair, it will have been better if the issue of mechanics breakdowns, if the new contract were to come with alternative transport services. While the vehicle is broken down, we need to improve. We can't be having new contract but with the same service, so that they are with us, they know what they're up to up the game. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honourable Magabani.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Greetings to the members and the members on the online platform. I can see the Department of Education is here. Greetings to the department and the AFRIRENT. Chair, I won't be long. It's just a heads up. It's good that you are coming in. We were very much disappointed by the previous contractor, and we're not expecting that from you as the new service provider. We're gonna measure you. We know you are a national service provider, but we're not gonna agree to anything that's gonna be outside what we are expecting as a KZN province. So we'll make sure that we hold you accountable. It's just a heads up. We are not threatening anyone, but we need to be in agreement that we are looking for a service. Nothing less, nothing more. So if you give us the service, we won't have problems with you. But if you don't give us the expected standard of service, then we'll have problems. I did say it's Honourable Chair, with the previous contractor, that they were very lucky that we were not part when they came in. And if we did action very much earlier than what we did, they were going to be out before their contract ends, because we're not going to accept it. One thing that they did that was wrong, we need to note it. One, they forgot that why they are a service provider. They are the ones who started to tell us that the ambulances are aging. We knew that they're aging. That's why the contract is there. Because once the car goes out of warranty of motor plan, then they need to take over. So you can't complain to us that the ambulances are aging, whereby your contract is actually there because of that reason. So you must note that. Why your contract is existing is because after the motor plan, then you must take over. So that's why your service starts. So that's your pulse of the service. So if you forget that, then it's going to be a problem. Number two, we're going to hold you accountable with simply 2 pages on your presentation. 2 pages. Nothing less, nothing more. Page 35 and page 30. Your key performance indicators will hold you accountable with that slide. On page 35, you spoke about the availability of vehicles. Although you did not specify the target, because we must also link your promises or your presentation with targets. Because when you say the availability, then there must be a target. So that we know that are you up to your standard or not. Because availability can be 4 out of 10 still availability.
Yeah.
But then there must be a targeted or a standard line on availability. If we have 10 ambulances, what is your availability out of 10? You see now where we need to go. Because if you say availability, but you don't give us a number, then it's something else. So link a number to your availability. What's the target? Out of these cars, I promise you this on my service. Then we are able to measure you correctly and fairly so. So those are the things that we need to take into consideration as well. The turnaround time. Also, we must link a target next to it. There must be days linked to this slide. The slide is not wrong, but we need, when we're talking about your service or measuring you, we need to be fair to you. Because we're going to say, you promised us this, but this is the reality at the moment. So what's happening? So that there won't be a back and forth arguments, unnecessary arguments. So let's link everything to a number next to it. Because you know, when you, at each time when you examine a person, it's not actually that you target that person to fail, but you are actually testing the understanding with little motivation and focus so that that person can focus. That's a reason for the exam. So that's why we're going to hold you accountable. It's some sort of examination to check if you are still on focus and you still understand and you still know your priorities. Lastly, Chair, on page 30, as I said, we're not going to threaten you because we need to give you opportunity to prove yourself. But you promised us on the merchants agreements and the minimum standards. Although I can see that you're saying especially on the legal and regulatory slide, the first line, registration tax and then triple PE. If it was my document, because we're talking about government that has got a history, a triple PE was supposed to be the first and say registration after, because we must also have a target on those who are marginalized, those who are less privileged. What are you saying about it? Is it a priority to you or not? You see, because now you are at this moment you are presenting to a political space. We are politicians, all of us here, including the other members online. So when now you on your minimum and standards, then we need to have a picture as to who are you targeting on your contracted development, because your CPG, the contracted development goal, must tell us who you want to develop. Who you want to develop. We must understand as politicians, what are your targets, who are you targeting, and then when are you planning to accomplish or hit that target. So I think now we need to align on those ones. Because when we hold you accountable, we're going to measure you with the service providers that you're going to be using in KZN. And where are they located? The spread, the balance, and your priority amongst when you categorize them. And then we'll measure you around those things. But it's just that I'm just giving you a lineup or a heads up that we are watching you. We are watching you. But when then you're going to disappoint us, you're not going to win. On that one, it's simply straight line. You're not going to win this time around. There are very wrong people online. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan Magavani. Yeah, look, I can assure you, Honourable, we're not finished with Westbank. Westbank is still responding to many of our questions, and we're certainly going to call them again. We're not going to let that one go. I believe that there weren't any real questions. The members were just making their points across. I don't know, very briefly, if there's any response from you on that. Sorry, I just want to respond to Honourable Matlopa. Yes, you asked for 90 days. You'll remember that we will have a session in October. So in October, every October, we call all the departments that the AG has had a problem with. But we will also ask for the input of those departments that are primarily using RT46, which is education, health, and community safety and liaison. And we will ask them, how's it going with AFRIRENT? And they will give us a very honest report. And then we'll call you to discuss those. So, you know, that's how it will work. So they will hold you to standard, and then we will hold you to account. Okay. So I think that, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to respond to now very briefly, and then I'll go to the members who are on the online platform.
Chair, honourable members, thank you for those comments. It's duly noted in terms of the expectations and the high expectations that is set out on this contract. Ma'am, you've asked on some turnaround times in terms of what are the expectations are, and again, we refer back to contractual agreements as well. Service and maintenance, the number of days that's required for service and maintenance is 1 day. That means a minor service. Vehicle goes in and needs to be repaired in 1 day. You touched on the fact that the prioritization of the private sector. This is exactly what happens in the private sector. If you're on a VW and you book your vehicle into a VW service center, you get your vehicle back the same day. What is different, or what should be different in this environment? And the answer is nothing. Minor repairs are set out for 2 days. Mechanical repairs are set out for 5 days. Damages are set out for 15 days. Accidents is set out in 30 days. And I guess it's also a message to our partners and our merchants and the OEMs across this country is to take note of this in terms of the expectation. There is no difference in terms of turnaround times of what a private individual gets a vehicle service versus a government vehicle. We need to change that. We ask for priority. We will be asking for priority lines in terms of different sectors when it comes to policing, ambulance, etc. Whereas if those vehicles go in for a tire change or a burst tire, the expectation is to attend to those vehicles immediately. Chairperson, you discussed and you've touched on valuable points in the last session that a child died because there was no ambulance. Now, do we want to have the same answer because of a burst tire? We touched on the police that could not get out. Again, same principles here. So, man, there's guidelines. Oh, sorry, it's not a guideline. It's an expectation in terms of the turnaround time. And as much as we administrate in it, we also asking to the listeners and the merchants out there is to adhere by these times. And again, lastly, thanks for keeping us honest in terms of the measurability and what we expected to do. It's the only way that we can govern this contract. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, if I can just quickly come in there before I go to the members online, because this turnaround thing is an issue. What you've referred to is when the vehicle's in the workshop. But what we've picked up is huge delays in getting that vehicle to the workshop. So vehicle X needs a service, or there's a large mechanical breakdown. Then there's a call by the department, the client department, for an inspection. An inspector's got to come out. That can be a couple of days that you wait for that. Then the inspector has a look, goes away. And sometimes can take a week, maybe 2 weeks to come back with a report. Then the client department's got to say, okay, we can afford that and give authorization. So it could be a month later that that vehicle actually goes to the workshop, and then your very lofty, turnaround times kick in. But how are you going to, because you're going to be running that whole thing, not just the actual fixing of the vehicle.
No, not the fixing.
What are your plans to reduce that time? Because that's what we picked up in our study, is that's one of the big issues. Then, of course, other issues are there, which is the inflation of prices and all that sort of thing. But let's talk about that. How are you going to cut out the bureaucracy to get the vehicles into the workshop quickly? Because we can hold you accountable while they're in the workshop.
Yes.
But one of the big problems is the admin issue of getting them there in the first place.
So, Chairperson, there's two aspects to that, and one is about the escalation. Our agents, our managers are measured in terms of their closure of pre-authorizations to close authorizations. It becomes their responsibility, it becomes AFRIRENT's responsibility to ensure that we meet those certain turnaround times. Of course, we can't do it by ourselves, and hence we include the escalation parts, is where we escalate and where we report on these things to try and get it as before the problem arises. We cannot sit a month later and we haven't got a clearance document signed, as we need to understand. And it's coupled with the KEs that's around the country that will be visiting different user departments. Of course, if there's a budget issue, some things are out of our control in terms of managing that. But we want to adhere to this turnaround times and what the expectations are.
All right, I really want to move on to the other members, but can I just point this out?
Yes.
You must understand, we're not just Scopa. Look, what I'm saying is I understand in that ecosystem, it isn't necessarily only the AFRIRENT agent that is slowing things down. It could be a department official that's slowing things down as well. You will be accounting to those departments I mentioned and to us.
Correct.
Please let us know when that's the problem.
Yeah.
Let education, I really would like you to, have the HOD on speed dial. Say, look, we're trying to get this vehicle back to you, but your official da-da-da-da is just not doing their job. And I think if we have that sort of innovative, quick working together, saying, we're trying to get your vehicle authorized, but because, I'm sure there are problems on both sides, people are people. And so if we can manage to tie up both sides, things will work. Okay, the members online have been very patient. Sorry. Oh,
No,
yes.
Thanks, Chairperson.
Okay.
I was just going to dovetail to what my colleague has just said, that, our approach is really on a global system thinking, right? That we understand that there are some processes that we've tried to help the users by digitizing on our side. So the escalation path that my colleague was speaking about is to at least try and make those processes that would have ordinarily been out of our control to somehow be able to be on this side, so that we've got date stamps that are able to show that from inception of a call and to the clearing of documents, how long it has been taken. And from a reporting perspective, we'll definitely bring it up here because it does have an impact in terms of turnaround. And maybe the second one is how we've also tried to make sure that from a human capital perspective, our technical inspectors, our KEs, and our presence in the various provinces in terms of physicality is to also help that we find ways that we can close some of these challenges that are outside what our system capability is able to do. So I just thought maybe let me bring that to your attention as well. Thanks.
All right, thank you. We need to close that circle, and I think that's the important thing, because we are going to be asking the departments to give us literally a detailed list of how many vehicles are with AFRIRENT, how many vehicles are out of, and like a blow by blow at each of them. You need to come with the same thing, so we can see where the bottlenecks are. Not to destroy people's lives, but to get that ambulance out there. That's the idea. Okay, let's move on to the members online who've been very patient. Honourable Mbata, then Honourable Naya, and then Honourable Gringwane. Honourable Mbata.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chairperson. I hope I'm audible enough. And greetings to AFRIRENT once again. Chairperson, one of the biggest problems in this country, it is not the absence of plans. We are so good, we are so excellent in producing presentations, strategies, and whatnot, government frameworks. On paper, we are spot on. I'm talking about the province at large. But if you can zoom closely, you'll see that service delivery, I'm just now talking in general, then I'll come back to the AFRIRENT. But service delivery is nowhere to be found. Buildings are collapsing. Everything is collapsing. Because why? We have good writers who prepare good presentations, good strategies, and whatnot. And when it comes to implementation, you get 20% of that. If I had time, Chairperson, I was going to tell you a story about a country called Kuwait, that it is called the richest country in the world, but go and see what is happening in their roads. It's the same thing that is happening here in this country. We are very good when it comes to presentation. And the real question before that I need to put before the team AFRIRENT is whether AFRIRENT is whether they can after producing a good presentation, are we as I think Honorable Kubane did touch on that, you touch on it, I think, and Honorable Scopa did touch on it. Are we going to see things moving faster? That's all that we need. Are we going to see things moving faster? Or it's the same thing as West Bank? Then lastly, on the presentation, the AFRIRENT repeatedly spoke about accountability, dashboards, and governance. But before we discuss that theory, can AFRIRENT tell this committee in measurable terms what exact operational outcomes will the people of this province see within their first 6 months under the RT46? Thank you very much, Chairperson. Those are a few things I wanted to add.
Thank you, Honourable Imata. Honourable Naya.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chairperson, and good morning once again to all. I just want to talk about the backlog recovery framework mentioned in the report. If you could just please explain to us how many vehicles are currently off the road, how many have been off the road for more than 30, 60, and 90 days, and how many of those are ambulances, police, and other critical service vehicles. I think it's important that we understand that aspect. And then secondly, on ambulances and critical vehicles, you say critical service vehicles will get priority through an independent call line and a special downtime team. Now, is this already working currently? And what is the maximum time an ambulance can be off the road before senior management steps in? And then finally, on the fair allocation of work, you say work will be allocated automatically and fairly. Can officials override that system? If they can, will the system show who changed it, why they changed it, and which merchant actually got that work? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Naya. I must point out that AFRIRENT have not started yet. They're starting on the 1st of July. So I'm sure they'll try and answer those questions, but yeah, they are starting on the 1st of July. We actually have got them in quite early. Okay, finally, Honourable Glungwane.
Chairperson, thank you so much. I'm not going to greet again because I think we've done that. I think thank you so much for the presentation. I'm glad that the Department of Education HOD has clarified, because I was worried because I think the presentation COO was talking about the learner transport and all of that. So one was getting worried whether the learner transport processes fall under this contract. But I think it was clarified that that particular aspect, I mean, the only aspect that get into is the departmental fleet, as well as the special schools, buses and so forth. I think that helped me clarify that, because I think during the presentation, there was that issue that in particular when it comes to learner transport, the AFRIRENT is involved. I think, Chair, so thank you so much from Mr. Ngobo for clarifying that aspect. Of course, Chair, this process we're happy, and thank you so much that we have been involved in this process now at this stage, because you'll recall when also we visited a number of other institutions, including the health functionality program, we found a district that did not have an ambulance in the entire district, functional. So I'm saying this process is actually helpful but it's just my worry, Chair. It's just my worry. I'm just while the process is good, I'm not saying this process is. I'm just worried that why this only contract or this only company would interrogate before it resumes its contract in the 1st of June. I understand that in the beginning of the year we had West Bank coming in through and all of that. But I'm imagining if all provinces undertake such a process for this particular contract, probably they'll end up talking like they are giving these good presentations, you know, and then come June, 1st of July, they might have a problem. So I'm just worried about that if this were going to maintain to all of the, because there are a number of contracts that I think they are worrisome. You know, I'm not sure how we are going to handle that moving forward. But we can assure you, you would, my apologies. You will be having us here. We're going to be here this year. We're going to be here next year. We're going to be here in 2028. We're going to be here in 2029. So it's going to be a long haul with you. So what Honorable Moyo was saying, that I think Honorable Makubane, that unfortunately we came late with noting what West Bank was involved in and its failures. That we must say that there were serious failures. I do not know how that contract sustained the entire term of West Bank, because it was a total failure as far as I'm concerned. Because you can't have a bus or an ambulance that is lying in the workshop for more than 12 weeks. You know, so we do not know. I believe you will not survive if you perform the manner in which West Bank has performed. But be rest assured, you've got our full support. With the presentation, good presentation that you have given us, we'll hold you to it, that you perform accordingly. And when you do not perform, we'll go back here to Hansard and remind you what you said here, you know, and therefore demand action against you. But you've got our full support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honourable Glugwani. Yeah, you know, you're quite right. I mean, how did West Bank stay under the radar for so long? And do you remember last year we did those EMS visits, and that's when it came up. And that's when we took the bull by the horns. And I agree, if there are other contracts coming up to provide essential services, maybe Scopa should be chatting to those contractors up front. But that is exactly why we have the determination now to not have a West Bank situation again, and start from the beginning, walking a path together and holding people accountable. I think it's groundbreaking for Scopa. I'm certainly proud that we've had something to do with it. Yeah, I'm going to come to Honourable now. But yeah, that's the circumstance, and I think if we are more vigilant, we'll do even better. And I mean, you are my partner, Honourable Glongwani, in finance, so we can certainly be both watching very carefully. Honourable Naya, you have a follow-up before I go to the AFRIRENT for responses?
Thanks, Chairperson. And I just wanted to provide some clarity and rephrase my question for clarity. I understand AFRIRENT only commences in July. My question is whether the independent call line and ring-fence downtime team will be fully established and operational from day one of commencement, not months into the contract. So I just wanted some assurance in that regard. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Naya. I appreciate that. AFRIRENT, would you like to respond to
Yes, Chair.
the second inputs? And then I have some questions for you as well.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for those questions. One thing I want to note is that on the presentation, yes, presentation looks very nice, but the result is in the execution of what we set out to do in these presentations. On a lighter note, we've had discussions last night in terms of our font and what size it needs to be, etc. And we came and we presented today nonetheless. But I take that comment seriously. It's about execution, and we appreciate the support that will be provided through this process, and of course accountability. So you've asked about accountability in terms of what are those measurables, and I think the honourable members around this room has also indicated around the targets. What are those targets? What are our turnaround times? What are our escalation paths? We will attach those targets so that we could be measured. There's also a penalty schedule in that's linked to this contract, and we must be measured against the penalty schedules in terms of our deliverables. So from a transparency perspective, it needs to be available, it needs to be seen. It's not something that should be hidden. Honourable Nai, you've asked I think about 3 questions around the delays, and I think Chairperson has indicated that we don't have that. We haven't started as yet, so we don't have visibility. I think what we said in the presentation earlier is that we want visibility now. We don't have to wait for 1 July to understand where we are and what is the problem that's coming to us 1 July. The expectation for us is to have that as early as possible. Ma'am, you've asked about the dedicated call center line and the dedicated team, whether we'll be ready for it 1 July. 1 June is our internal deadline in terms of setting that up. The call center staff sitting on their seats and really pushing the limits in terms of authorizations. During the month of June, we go through an internal training process that will start equipping the various clusters in terms of what the expectations are, the contract training in terms of how long turnaround times needs to be, how long maintenance should take, and how long where escalations come through. So the whole month of June becomes a training exercise for us. We've already invested before day 1 in building a new call center facility, and that building is in progress to be built and ready for 1 June. We have contingency plans in case of weather. The weather up in Johannesburg is a bit erratic with the rain, and we have contingency plans to mitigate 1 June if we're not ready on the building. So emphasize on 1 June is because we want to be ready. And like I said, we can't expect to employ a new call center 1 July when the contract starts on 1 July. So we've been through our planning phases already, and we're starting to execute on some of those. The turnaround times, you've asked about turnaround times as well. It's documented in the SLA between the different minor service and repairs. Early engagement in understanding what the challenges are and where the downtime is will aid us and assist us in terms of negotiating with suppliers and negotiating with OEMs around parts availability and how we can close that gap. These meetings need to happen, and it needs to happen as in yesterday's. But without visibility of where we are from a downtime perspective, we flying in the dark as from an implementation phase. Like I said, we've requested the documents, our engagements with the different heads. Ms. Glenys has already engaged with Dr. Reddy to set up our initial meeting, and perhaps we will start gathering information from them as opposed to from the existing supplier. Chairperson and colleagues, I trust I've answered. If I've missed anything, please let me know.
Yeah, you did miss something. Honourable Nai asked you, there's an auto-allocation process.
Yes.
And she asked you, can that be overridden by human
yes. Very important.
And how do we pick that up?
So very importantly, what happens there is a process, and again, linked to SLA, where user departments has mandate to select different merchants. The process on our side remains the same from an onboarding perspective. They will have to meet our criteria in terms of being onboarded. Around that, there's a I lost my train of thought. There is a process that governs deviation around the auto allocation and where it needs to go, and that becomes documented, and of course it's audited. It's a lengthy process that will have to go via Treasury number 1 and the contract owners to sort of give us authorization to say that there is a deviation from a mandate selection perspective. And of course, we haven't seen the documentation, but I'm sure we will have that documentation, and that process must be in place. There is no deviation from an auto allocation perspective unless it's authorized at the right level. And when we talk about authorizations at the right level, it's not an AFRIRENT authorization. It's the committees, it's Treasury, it's Department of Transport that will give us any deviations from contract. Thank you, sir.
All right. Honourable Mbata, I note your hand. If you don't mind, I just want to run through some of my own questions, and I'll come to you. Right. One of the first questions, look, obviously one of the big concerns is the onboarding of HDRs, okay, and how we help with transformation and how we give smaller operators an opportunity. But at the same time, I think we all agree, and I think anybody who's sensible agrees, that you want to assist smaller operations get involved, but they need to be up to the job. Because we cannot have, with those kind of vehicles, you certainly can't have any mishaps. But the question is simple things like a payment plan of 30 days after invoice. How are you going to mitigate that with an HDR that might not be able to cover that? I was recently up in Newcastle and I was chatting to an operator up there who had to share the ambulance in the workshop. And we were talking about RT46, and he said, if an ambulance is brought in and it needs an engine replaced, that could cost up to 200,000 Rand. So how do we, and look, obviously we can always say, oh, well, we go to OEM for that, they can manage that. But how do we ever get to the point where we are going to help smaller operators get involved on the chain? Are we going to help them with different jobs at different values and allow them to build their way up like they do with the built environment, the CRDB? I just want to know what your plan is there, and also whether there's any treasury instruction in that regard as to how you manage that. The other thing about, I believe the merchant agreement is going to be asking for 12 months warranty on parts, but in certain situations you would use aftermarket parts, but they only carry 6 months warranty. So how are you going to bridge that particular gap? And then, it comes back to that question of how are you uplifting HDRs in terms of value? Do you have a whole plan in place of all the HDRs you want to evaluate, see what value they can handle, see what kind of work they can handle, whether they've got the financing available to them to handle bigger jobs? Or if we just have the plan for that, I need to really be clear on that. Then another very direct question is AFRIRENT onboarding old West Bank inspectors that could possibly have been involved in funny business. And we've been dead serious about this because, remember, I'm going to get this information from West Bank. So if I found the new organisation, there's going to be an issue. So that was. Then there are just one or two more. If you can just please note these, just two more. There are people in West Bank that have been literally riding this whole thing for a lengthy period of time. It's a follow-on from the first question. How are you going to make sure that those rotten apples are kept out? Okay, I'm not saying that, please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every single person who's at West Bank is a bad person. I bumped into, while I was buying a coffee the other day, somewhere on the N3, to an inspector who recognized me from the Scopa hearing. And we're having a long chat about, he seemed like a very decent chap. So, the question is how are we going to make sure that we exclude those rotten apples? And then the other question is, are you going to have your own workshop at all? Will AFRIRENT be opening their own workshops at all, or is it going to all be contractors? So you won't have any build workshops? Okay, just answer that. Okay. Right, that's it from me. Let me just go to Honourable Mbata for this follow-up, and then we can go back to you.
Thanks, Honourable Chairperson. Yes, Honourable Chairperson, I'm here. I needed to ask just one question because AFRIRENT is it's a national what you call company, if I can use that word. Now, I'm asking this question based on the fact that one of the presenters said you can take a car to VW for minor service, then you get a car on that day. Now, I just want to understand that do they have branches here in KZN? Thanks, Chair.
Okay, I'll let you respond to those. Sorry, there is just one thing that I raised with you earlier.
Yes.
Sorry, Bagamili is saying I'm going crazy. I did raise this with you earlier, but I think, you know, I don't want to necessarily throw you under the bus with this. So, in the last day or two, there were disclosures from the Madlanga Commission that AFRIRENT was involved in a contract in Johannesburg with the city of Johannesburg that was allegedly allocated without any SCM process. I don't want to ask you to respond to that, Chair, because that was not the purpose of the engagement. However, I am going to ask, because I think it is a matter of concern, I am going to ask Mr. Mkonazi to write to you yourselves and ask for a formal response. Because I think going forward, it's fair for us as a committee to have your input on what was brought up at the Madlanga Commission. Just so that we have that on record going forward. I've received no information that the awarding of this contract was irregular, so, you know, we were not going to go there, and I don't want to throw you under the bus with it. But I just wanted to raise it, and let's just try and square that up and get that sorted out. Okay, please, your responses. And you don't have to respond on the Madlanga thing.
No problem at all.
Right.
We will comply and provide the necessary response on that. But Chairperson, I know you say I don't need to respond, and we are aware of it. We have seen it, and we have written to various individuals to give us clarity around those matters, and we're in the same process of responding, and we'll respond to you around those things as well. If I could just cover the technical aspects of the questions that was posed is around the workmanship warranties, 6 months and 12 months. Of course, we stipulate in our merchant agreements 12 months as a standard. If there's where there's warranty, parts warranty applicable for 6 months below, of course, those becomes honorable. The emphasis around the 12-month warranties around workmanship, and we want to provide quality service. So individuals need to be confident or confident on their quality service that you're not going to fit a part that's going to be broken the next day. We're not going to fit used parts on vehicles where parts are not fitted or second-hand parts are being replaced on vehicles. We want to keep a close watch on that. The aspect around uplifting, Charlie, we'll cover that. The West Bank aspect, yes, sir, there is some, we believe there's rotten apples in that mix, and you know, we've been engaging with some of the West Bank staff. A lot of them have been applying for positions, and we're not taking all of them. There are some good individuals within that West Bank environment. We know who they are. We sort of identified a few of them in terms of their qualities and their capabilities, and they've been forthcoming with information to us around who's the rotten apples within that organization. Obviously, you know, one can say that the next person's a rotten apple, and that person been rotten as well. Our employment process goes through the same process of how we onboard our merchants, and we take them through that journey in terms of vetting who they are as individuals. Number one, we want to make sure that none of these technical advisors have merchants or have relations with merchants. So we do a cross-reference in terms of a membership between merchant and the employer, and of course criminal checks. We've raised this at a SEPS level as well. where we want guidance, or not guidance, where we want assistance. If there is any investigations that are ongoing, they need to keep us abreast of some of that information. And of course, the criminal checks on them to make sure that there is no criminalities, or we're not employing any criminals within that environment. Shirley?
Thanks, Chairperson. Perhaps maybe just to touch on, I think Honorable Mbata asked about what our measurable outcomes look like, perhaps in the first 6 months. And I just wanted to touch on some of it, right? One of the things that are key to us is that we want to ensure that there is cost saving, just as a start. And you spoke about issues around pricing and how we're going to manage that. And within how we are enhancing our system is to actually catch on some of the aspects of overcharging. So one of the measurable outcomes, at least in the first 6 months, is for us to come and demonstrate that with our system capability, what we are able to then do is to ensure that we don't have costing or pricing that is exorbitant. And we spoke about the supplier performance. We have a platform that we have started to develop in terms of ensuring that all of these performance indicators that my colleague has spoken about, that we can track them against these suppliers, because what that does is it also feeds into the HDI program for us to be able to see the high-performing merchants. And from a high-performing merchant perspective, we're then able to categorize the kind of development activities around those merchants. One being about where we can see that there is capability, the expansion that they require. We then partner with our financiers. I must say that our financiers were quite proactive in partnering with us to say, how do we work together to make sure that we can support HDI? One of the things that we've already spoken about is how do we utilize the purchase order funding, that once we give authorization, that some of the merchants are able to then go to our financier, and we will share those financiers as we get to that finalization of our agreements, that they're able to then tap into how working capital can then be directed to them. So we de-risk issues of cash flow with the merchants. So we are already in principle speaking to our financiers to support HDIs from that perspective. We've also already started, in fact, let me say, I think we've done all the negotiations with our part suppliers to say that we want parts to be available to our merchants at the price at which they've agreed to AFRIRENT, so that we allow for them to participate. If they actively choose to participate in those preferred part suppliers, it makes it a whole lot easier, because availability of parts is going to be there. From a cost-effective perspective, it then comes into play, Chairperson. We also do acknowledge that at some point after we have looked at our data analytics, is that how do we then bring in accelerated payment terms for the HDIs within our own working capital? At this point, of course, contractually we're saying 30 days payment terms, but obviously as I'm indicating these various indicators that will trigger whether a merchant would then be subject to the accelerated payment terms. But in the main, there is various things that we've put in place so that we can support our merchants, because it's important for us to ensure that those that we strategically partner with, they make us succeed so that we are able to deliver on this contract effectively. And back to the outcomes, Chairperson, I think it's our intention as the leadership to ensure that, you know, the percentage spend of the contracts is commensurate not only to the percentage usage of HDIs, but the spend can be redirected over the period of time from where it was to a better percentage. I think at some point there was an 88% that has been communicated to us, and we will actively track that through the program that we will implement. I don't think I've left out any.
Thank you. I've noted the hand of Udokotela Ntetwa. I just want to ask a quick question. Are you engaging with any industry organizations that represent the smaller merchants, for instance, like MIFA behind you? Are you engaging there and having conversations? Because in my interaction with them on the West Bank thing, they also have their own standards and norms and that sort of thing. So just want to know if you are.
Yes, Chairperson, we are. We're engaging with a few of them.
Okay. Udokotela, Honorable Dogotela, this is a real doctor now, a real medical doctor. So he will give you what for on ambulances. Honorable Dogotela, please join us.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Greeting to AFRIRENT team and to the honorable members of Scopa. Apologies for barging into your meeting, but I'm quite interested in knowing the plans of AFRIRENT, especially when it comes to SAPS, ambulances, and disability scholar transport, because that's where we really suffer the most. Your previous West Bank, they kept ambulances for up to 12 months, 9 months, 3 months, and they had good plans like you guys are saying, but their real challenge came with their assessors. Their assessors were not very good in doing the job. Now you'll get a call for one ambulance, and when they come into a dealership, they will assess that one ambulance when there's 4 other ambulances which are already in the premises. Just because they're not yet lodged, they will not assess those ambulances, and then it just creates these delays. Now you've said something very interesting. You said you have timelines, say for a tire change or minor service, you want to keep maximum 3 days the ambulance or the vehicle. My question is, what happens when you are unable to do that? Do you have other plans? Like, what happens when the ambulance we find an ambulance is stuck in for a week or a month? Do you have plans to say we will replace this ambulance by renting an ambulance or doing something? How are you going to do that? How are you going to mitigate so that we don't keep these ambulances for a long time? And then the other thing is, how many assessors do you have in KZN, especially, that are going to make sure that you are able to deliver on what you are saying you are planning to do? Then the last question is, you said you're going to prioritize vehicles to say, a merchant must understand that this is a high priority vehicle and this is not a high priority vehicle. Now, can you just clarify for me what criteria you're going to be using to say this vehicle is a high priority vehicle, this is not a high priority vehicle? And then that's my only 3 questions. Thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity.
It's a great pleasure, Honorable Dogotela. Those are all excellent questions. Right, over to you. I think that probably will conclude the questions today. Honorable Magabani's got one more, one short one. Okay. Well, Honorable Magabani, do you want to ask that question? And then we can get the answers to all of them. Yes, okay. Just take this one question.
Thanks, Chair. My apologies for interrupting. Just one question. I had when AFRIRENT now just gave us a indication that they are on arrangements on like I think it's more like a pro rata rate, or if I am using, but I know I'm using the wrong language. It's not the mechanical language. It's more like when you're giving a merchant an advance sum or amount of money so that they can do the job. Is that what you're meaning? On what basis they're going to be able to manage that? I'm just checking. I'm not sure if I'm using the correct terminology, but how are you going to manage that to ensure that your merchants will actually deliver as expected when you trust them with your money, so that they can be able to bring an outcome very fast? I was just checking. And then on your system that you said, all your stakeholders will be able to to reach your or be able to see your systems and the updates? Are you going to be using the apps, the SAPs? Because there are many, there's a Colombia, there's Delta, there's all that. Are you going to install them in all these merchants so that they can be able to operate? Is that training going to be done or is done already? So I just want to check on those things. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Magabani. Right, over to you. Sorry, members, just want to, as soon as we finish the questioning session, we've been asked to take a photograph with AFRIRENT. So if we could all just quickly come down the front here, take the photograph, we'll excuse AFRIRENT and everybody else, and then we'll quickly adopt our reports, and then we'll be done. Okay, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe just to answer the last question. So what we're saying about the purchase order backed financing that's going to be administered by our financier is that what they will be doing is paying directly where the parts are being bought, so that we exclude the cash going through to merchants, because then we're going to have issues of delivery. Coupled with that is for us to be able to look at what we term a progressive milestone delivery. So when it's parts, like our parts suppliers, we've agreed with them that when our merchants are participating in their in parts supply, they must give them 30%, 30 days payment. So already that deals with some of the parts issues, and then there's aspects of further financing for the work. I hope I've answered you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shadi. If I could just move to the assessors. Funny enough, that's the last previous meeting that we listened to. We've mandated everybody to listen to the same meeting at least twice, and it was long. And we've noted the 6 assessors in KZN, and it raised a flag on our side as well. We did initially budget for 6 individuals to be in the province, and we took a step back. And what we said is we need to map where the number of vehicles, where the number of merchants are, so that we appropriately assign technical advisors to those strategic areas. There's no point of somebody traveling from KZN to Newcastle. If there's a number of vehicles in Newcastle, we need a technical advisor in Newcastle to attend to those matters. So we've taken a step back from our initial stance. The intent was obviously to cover from northern KZN, southern KZN, and the inland of KZN from that approach. And we said, let's just take a step back. If there is a current concern already, let's relook at that planning phase and appropriate accordingly to vehicles. So we talk about priority. What are those priorities? In our work allocation is, okay, let's start on tires. Tires is the easiest. Is when your vehicle goes into a tire shop, our expectation is to the merchant to see to your vehicle first from an emergency perspective. We're not asking for special favors. We're not asking for special treatment. Is that we are positioning that SAPS, emergency medical service, scholar transportation, is key to the development of this country, and we expect them to assist us in that process. From a rental perspective and providing the rental, I'll be honest with you, so we haven't gotten there as yet. It's something that we need to discuss with Treasury as well as NDOT just to get clarity around those expectations in terms of how that is managed. Thank you, sir.
Okay. I just want to give Treasury the final word, if Treasury would like to give any input. And also put Treasury on terms, because they're the ones that are responsible for making sure that you do your work. Treasury?
Thanks, Chair. It's not necessarily a response, but to indicate that we are currently in engagements with AFRIRENT for the implementation of the contract, as they've already indicated that there's been a handing over of information from the previous service provider to them, so that there's a smooth transition. And we are looking forward to the automated allocation system, because if you follow up the issues, there's majority of our problems emanate from where allocation of vehicles, there's human intervention. So we are hopeful that the system will be able to assist us, and maybe we give it a chance to see how it's going to assist, particularly around the development of merchants that were historically disadvantaged. And we will continue to work with the committee regarding the implementation of the contract starting from the 1st of July. I thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, final word is to yourself, and then we'll take a nice photograph.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the honourable members for affording us the opportunity to come through and really speak about AFRIRENT and its readiness to take over RT46. And we really do appreciate the commitment that has come forth, and we intend to partner with yourselves. We do pride ourselves with saying that our intention is to strategically partner for 15 years. And with that said, it means that we really need to ensure that we can retain the contract even beyond the term that we have been awarded. And with that said, Chairperson, maybe just to also lament around the issues that have been raised in social media. We just want to give you the commitment that indeed the AFRIRENT has their ducks in the row. We do have communication that will be made public, and perhaps in terms of clarity from the issue around the contract not being awarded through proper procurement processes. That is categorically incorrect, because the use of Regulation 32 is allowed within a procurement process, and that contract went through that process. But yeah, we do appreciate the time that you have given us. Thank you.
No, we fully understand that. And as they say in the classics, the proof of the pudding is in the eating thereof. So that's exactly why we're doing this. So we will see each other in October again, and then we'll see what that pudding is starting to taste like. You know, yeah, it's that simple, really. So, you know, as the Afrikaans guys say, highlight and vase. You know, just show us what you can do. We wish you all the best. Members, now there's been a request that we do a photograph. I don't normally enjoy this sort of thing, but let's have a photograph. AFRIRENT, if your team just wants to come and stand on the steps here. If the MIFA team wants to join us, you're welcome. Education. Our media people want to photograph. Pakamila, you must join us. Yes, you must. Okay. Please, members, don't run away. Members online, please don't run away. We still need to adopt reports, please. Okay, members, as soon as we can, let's adopt the reports. Kabo, which reports are you going to take us through?
And I would suggest that the chair start with the follow-up report. Then
all right.
Yeah, as per the agenda, Chair.
Okay, all right. So let's put that. Can we get that follow-up report up on the screen?
All right.
Okay, members. The first report is the follow-up report from February. It relates to our work in February and all the resolutions that we passed after meeting with the various departments. It does not deal with RT46 because that's a separate report. So, members, these reports were circulated. I'm going to take them as read. Kabo, do I need a proposer and a seconder for the reports?
Yes, sir, you do.
Okay. So, Kabo, you're going to put that first report up? The follow-up report.
Let's put it up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so there it is. Members, as I said, these have been circulated. These are the resolutions that came out of the February hearings. Can I have a proposer for this report? Anybody on the online platform, please jump in. Okay, Honourable Matlopa, do you propose?
Thanks, Honourable Chair. Yes, I did read. I propose that we accept it as a true reflection of previous deliberations.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a seconder? Honourable McKees.
Thanks, Chair. I support second.
Thank you very much. All right, so then the next, if I'm not mistaken, the next report is
It's RT46, Chair.
The RT46 report.
Yes.
The RT46 report was also circulated. Now, this is the report, obviously, that related to our engagements with, on that big day when we had West Bank and everybody here, also circulated. Can I have a proposal for that report? Honourable Matlopa.
Thank you, Chair. It means that I'm the only one that read it. I propose it. It's me and Honourable Kabazel.
Kabazel Mavovo. Are you going to second? Honourable McKees?
Yes, Chair. Second.
Okay, thank you. All right. The next report then is the 2026-27 annual performance plan. That was circulated some time ago. Kabo, am I right?
Yes, you're right. And it was circulated on Friday and Sunday.
Yes. Okay. All right. I think that's pretty much our report, as it always is every year, October, February, and our normal resolution. So can I have a proposal for that report? Has everyone gone to sleep on the online platform? No one's helping me there.
Chair, I'd like to propose.
Thank you, Honourable Naya. We have a seconder for the ARP. Honourable Matlopa. Thank you very much. Okay, and then colleagues, just finally then, it's the Scopa annual performance report that I'm going to be submitting tomorrow in the chairperson's committee. It literally is just a report as to how far we are, and it will obviously include today's engagement and all the work we've done up until now in the year, before we start the new year. Can I have a proposal for that report? It was also circulated. Honourable Matlopa again.
Propose acceptance, Chair.
Okay, do I have anybody else
I'd
who'd
like
like
to
to?
second, Chairperson.
Thank you,
Honourable
Honourable
Naya.
Naya. Appreciate that. Colleagues, honourable members, with that, the business of the day is complete. Thank you very much. If I may just say, honourable members, I think we can all be proud of what we've done today. Today's a first. I've never heard of a committee like Scopa calling a supplier before they even start and putting them on terms and making sure we walk the path with them. And if you can just imagine, if we call them twice a year and health calls them once and education calls them once, they will have to account to this legislature 4 to 5 times a year. That really, as a legislature, enables us to really keep the thumb on and keep our finger on the pulse. And I think it's something we could all be proud of. But members, thank you very much for your...
I think we need to call on the tender, call all the tenderpreneurs so that they can come into.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll start a trend. Anyway, members, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And I'll see you all soon. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.